It's been a week since the conflict between Israel and Iran ended with a ceasefire brokered by the United States. For more on this, we're joined by Professor Paik Seunghoon, researcher at the Institute of Middle East Studies. Professor Paik, thanks for joining us this morning.
Pleasure to be on Arirang News Center.
Good morning. So, will the peace agreement between Israel and Iran continue to hold and forever end this conflict between the two countries?
So the ceasefire has held for a week, but we should be very cautious in interpreting that it as a durable peace, because it remains structurally fragile with no formal monitoring mechanism and no legally binding terms. So what we see is more of a tactical pause, a breathing space for both sides, rather than a resolution of their core disputes. So Iran has refrained from direct retaliation so far, but it retains its option through proxies such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, Houthis in Yemen, and the PIJ in Hamas, and so on, and several Iraqi militia groups. So although it has weakened by the successful military operation of Israel, and Israel in turn has declared the mission of success, but remained on high alert along its northern and southern front. So the ceasefire is being preserved not through mutual trust, but through strategic calculation and interpretation, international pressure, particularly from actors like Qatar and European Union. So we have to watch and see how it goes and how it progresses.
Right. And U.S. President Donald Trump says American strikes obliterated Iran's nuclear sites, but it's still quite unclear how effective they actually were. What's your assessment on this? How far has Iran's nuclear program been set back?
So although Trump administration claims it has obliterated the Iran nuclear program, the ground reality is more complex. So the U.S. strikes certainly disrupted Iran's nuclear infrastructures, particularly above ground support system at Natanz and Isfahan, which were targeted for their uranium conversion and centrifuge housing capabilities. However, Iran's Fordo enrichment facility, located deep underground in Hardened Mountain Complex, appears to have escaped serious structural damage. Satellite imagery and the IAEA initial assessment show no radioactive liquid, suggesting that the core enrichment assets and nuclear material have been relocated in the advance, and Iran claims. So as a result, Iran's program has likely been delayed by months, not dismantled, as initial report of Ministry of Defense and CNN and New York Times, which later confirmed by the IAEA itself. So we, again, like it is different what have Trump administration have like claimed. So we have to see how, if the negotiation starts, we have to see how this will play out on the negotiation phase between Iran and United States.
Right, and you mentioned retaliation from Iran, and U.S. government agencies are now warning of increased Iranian cyber threats. Could Iran carry out further retaliation in response to the latest U.S. strikes?
Cyber retaliation is not just likely, it may already be on the way, because cyber warfare allows Iran to strike back asymmetrically below the threshold of the conventional war. So this approach aligns with Iran's long-standing doctrine of plausible deniability and layered deterrence. Iran has the capabilities as well. I mean, Iran has cultivated a network of cyber unit within their military forces, such as APT-34 and APT-35 unit, capable of targeting critical infrastructures across the West. We've seen prior attack on oil facility, water systems, and financial services in U.S., Israel, and Gulf states. So given that the recent U.S. strike challenges Iran's national security core, Tehran will feel compelled to respond in a way that avoids overt escalation. So like what you mentioned, cyber attack and asymmetry warfare already had begun. So and it will going to progress while the negotiation just kicks in.
I see. And Trump is set to meet Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House next Monday. What's likely to be discussed there, and will the U.S. pressure Israel to reach a deal on Gaza like they did with Iran?
So probable discussion agendas will likely include continued U.S. logistic and intelligence support for Israel operation, and coordination on Iran's potential countermeasures, such as cyber attack or proxy activities, reinforcement of joint missile defense program, particularly in anticipation of cross-border escalation, and the possibility of developing a regional deterrence architecture that involves key Gulf allies like UAE and Saudi Arabia. And of course, the Gaza front will also be on the table. Trump has hinted at the possible ceasefire in Gaza, and Netanyahu will be pressured to clarify Israel's long-term objectives in Gaza Strip. So while Washington may now be cautious about authorizing new offensive operation, it remains committed to Israel's qualitative military edge and will likely reaffirm strategic guarantees, if not more overt support.
I see. And has the ceasefire between Israel and Iran opened the door to ending the war in Gaza?
I certainly hope so, but I believe we need to watch the situation a bit longer before drawing a firm conclusion. The ceasefire between Israel and Iran has created a rare moment of regional calm, but its effects on the Gaza conflict remain indirect and conditional. What it has done is reduce the immediate threat of a two-front escalation, giving Israel slightly more strategic breathing room. That in turn may increase its willingness to consider a negotiated exit strategy from Gaza, especially under pressure from allies like the United States and Egypt. And on the Iranian side, the de-escalation has sent a signal to regional actors, including Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, to limit overt hostilities, at least for now. However, the Gaza conflict is driven not only by the regional dynamics, but by deeply rooted internal political, humanitarian, and ideological factors. So while the Israel-Iran ceasefire hasn't directly opened the door to ending the Gaza war, it has unlocked a pathway, a new diplomatic space for major actors to push for ceasefire negotiation. But turning that into an actual agreement will require coordinated international mediation and tangible shift in conditions on the ground. So we have to also watch and how it goes in the near futures.
Right, we'll have to see how that plays out. All right, Professor Paik, thank you so much for your insight today. We appreciate it.
Pleasure is mine.